So are you asking what yoga is? I guess what my philosophy of yoga is that it's a path of the journey inward to your innermost self. And there's many different paths depending on which direction you come from. Yoga starts in the physical. Takes you through your body and allows you to connect with your breath, connect with your mind, and make union of those three. Ultimately getting to that point where in that union and in that complete harmony, you're able to reach areas of higher focus, higher concentration, higher consciousness, until you pierce through that threshold and find your inner self, find truth. So yoga is one of those paths. It could be, and you can enter it with just physical in mind, but eventually you can't help but go inward because you're lining up all the koshas. And you go down the rabbit hole. And yes, it is a rabbit hole. It is yoga for us as we are today. We're used to fast pace. We're not necessarily comfortable with stillness, with quietness. We have a hard time unwinding from our fast-paced life. We go into yoga class, and what's comfortable for us is the fast-paced yoga, where really we are connecting most of the time body with breath, especially in the vinyasa flows. It's very fast. You are connecting body and breath, but without necessarily the technique and the art of aligning the body and aligning the nadis. So when you start doing that, you already have made a connection in vinyasa with body and breath. But until you bring your mind into your body, then there isn't necessarily a connection of all three. So what happens in vinyasa, we go through the motion, we bring breath into body, but unless we're aligned properly, that prana that we're bringing in with breath and movement is either spilling out or building up, causing havoc. The first way it can cause issues is physical injury. Okay. We're putting our bodies, our physical plane, into positions that are unhealthy per your joints, per your muscles. Energetically, we're causing harm because bringing energy into our body and yes, spilling over. Or bringing so much energy in and then collapsing in an area and that prana can't get through. And so you blow out here. And the best way I can explain it, coming from a medical background, is one, you're compressing, tying a tourniquet tight on an artery. What happens? Everything above becomes ischemic, and everything below gets high pressure, eventually possibly leading to bleeding, whatever. So on a physical level, that gives you kind of an analogy of, on a pranic level, how that can affect your chakras, your energy systems, and the organs that are associated with that. Remember, prana, chakras, is where consciousness and physiology meet, where physical and consciousness come together. So you have your Annamaya kosha on the outside. The next layer, prana. Well, I'm highly influenced by Madhya Azrati, and she's very alignment based. But the way that it differs from that is we're really taking the time to turn inward, take our mind's eye into places in our body that we haven't made connections to in a really long time. So when your mind is occupied on what your second toe is doing, what your knee's doing, in relationship to your frontal pelvic bones, all the way to the top of your head, your mind is completely in the moment. It can't help but be in that moment. So not only do you have the benefit of being completely in the moment at that time, you're taking in your breath, you're aligned, the prana's moving. So many different levels of how this is different and why it's so amazing. It's just yoga. It's just yoga. And you could call it Mata yoga. But when you bring in, and really you can just call it Ashtanga yoga. Traditional Ashtanga yoga. 8 limbs of yoga, right? Ashtu means 8. Ashtanga does not necessarily mean what we know as modern Ashtanga today.